Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome back to my channel for another look at the racing on a Saturday, this time for Saturday, April 23rd. I've titled this video, Thoroughbreds Are So Inconsistent, and I'll get to that a bit later in the video, but let's have a look at how the wagon wheel's been going. Last week I had 5 bets using the strategy, came up with the winner, and I thought, yes, finally the wheels are actually rolling in my direction, but next bet, Forbidden Love, just ran very, very poorly. Very disappointing run. None of the others later in the day even looked close to getting involved in the finish. Getting so frustrated with the way the strategy is performing, and so I've started really thinking about ways of attending to what I think are some issues with the actual structure of the strategy, and we'll look at that momentarily, but just summarising where we're at now. Pretty much coming up to the end of the second cycle. When we get to $2,200, it'll be time to change the size of the bets, and they'll be becoming smaller because the bank is now down to, what have we got there, 1,000 take away 167, so $833. So return on investment negative 7.9% and an ever diminishing strike rate. And here's sort of one of the biggest issues that I have with the strategy. And I'm referring here to a horse that's actually running in Randwick race 7, Duchess. Now, its last start was in Canberra, and it ran in an open class race, but prior to that, its previous 7 starts had been at benchmark 72 or lower. And yet, when you look at the class rating for the race, TAB is saying that it's now running in a weaker class race because it's dropping from an open class down to a benchmark 94. But there's no way in my mind that a Canberra Open is anywhere near the quality of a benchmark 94 on a Saturday in metropolitan Sydney. And so, it's this sort of thing here that needs to be dealt with. But unfortunately, if you're trying to develop a mechanical system where you're just going to automate everything, there's no way out of it. You're going to have to put some subjectivity into it, and I'm not really sure how to go about that, to be perfectly honest. And so, that's the first thing that needs to be dealt with, and there have been a number of occasions where horses have come up with high ratings because TAB have claimed that they are performing in a weaker class race, when in fact they're actually moving up in class because they're coming from midweek or a non-metropolitan track onto a Saturday race meeting. Something that we need to be considering, I guess, in making our decisions about whether a horse has any chance in a race or not. But some other things that we need to be looking at here, I think, first of all, this was the Wagon Wheels table for comparing favouritism versus barrier, and you'll notice that there's basically any barrier from 1 to 6, which would be considered good, gets a 3-point bonus or benefit, if you like, above a fair barrier from barrier 7 to 12, which in turn gets a 2-point bonus above bad barriers from barrier 13 outwards. And yet, when you have a look at the statistical data, and this is data that my brother collected actually over the full 2020 calendar racing year, every single race in Australia covered and analysed, and you can see that there's a pretty strong trend saying that barrier 1 is better than barrier 2, 3 and 4 and 5, and as you go down and you get into wider and wider barriers, the chances of those horses winning diminish significantly. And so really, when you go from barrier 6 to barrier 7, there is not a gap of 3. At best, you can say it's a gap of about a half a point, maybe. And the same thing when you drop from barrier 12 to barrier 13. It's not a drop of 2, it's a drop of about a half. And so I've adjusted the calculations within the wagon wheel structure to allow for this fact, and I'm actually now using numbers which very much reflect these sorts of win percentages. Now, if you add them up, it comes to way more than 100%, and that's because these are the figures for races in which that particular barrier actually took part. So in other words, if you had a race where there's a horse that actually began from barrier 14 and looked at all of those races, 6.4% of those races are won by the horse in barrier 14. So I've just basically made some adjustments to the tables to take account of this particular fact. And the second one to take notice of is the strike rate of the various favourites. Now, across that 2020 calendar year, the favourite actually won 34%. Just over 1/3 of all the races were won by the starting price favourite. And then the second favourite won 20% and so on, accounting for 91% of all the races. So whenever the race had at least 6 horses in it, the sixth favourite won 5.6% of them. Whenever the race had at least 5 horses in it, then the fifth favourite won 7% of those races and so on. And so, in fact, sort of going 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 down the favourite list is really a bit pointless. And it's also pretty pointless, really, I think, from a statistical perspective anyway, looking outside of the top 6 favourites if you're going for a mechanical type approach, a statistical style of constructing some sort of mechanical system. And so I've now attended to that on the wagon wheel in the sense that only the top 6 favourites are actually analysed, put all the data in, but only the 6 favourites come out being considered for getting a rating and then working out what the appropriate starting price might be. And finally, there's this issue of the weight carried by a horse, and the impression is that the more weight a horse carries, the less chance there is of it winning, or at least the more difficult the job is for the horse to win. And that's obviously true. I mean, if a horse is carrying like 54 kilograms and then it gets asked to carry 60 kilograms in the same class of race next start, well, that's a pretty big ask. But the statistics say that the most highly weighted horses win more often than the lowly weighted horses. And so I've changed the weight column down to now a tab number column and incorporated these particular numbers into that. Now, I'm not going to actually talk through the formulas. The spreadsheet's available for you to download from Google Sheets. And you can have a look at the formulas and what I've done. Sort of pretty funky, really. It's just my attempt to try and make some sort of allowance for these sorts of stats. But that's what I've done. So let's have a look at the 4 races in the Quaddie for each of the Randwick and also the Caulfield races for Saturday. So beginning with Randwick race 7, and you can see over here I've removed things like the jockey bonus. I've removed the heavy track because I just couldn't work out how I was going to allocate any numbers to that. And in here we've got the tab number instead of the weight, and I've made some adjustments in here to how the favourite and the barrier ratings are worked out, and I've also made some changes to how I get a final rating for the horse. But I'm pretty happy with the way it looks, and as I said, you need to go and have a look at the formulas in here. Just highlight the cell and you can see the formula up there, and you can perhaps work out what's going on. If you're interested, I'll actually put a video together and take you all the way through the whole of this particular part of the spreadsheet and explain what I've done. But for right now, let's just go on and see what the wagon is telling us about the races for tomorrow. Well, in race 7 at Randwick, it's come up with Andermatt as the favourite. This is the horse Duchess, which I was talking about before, which they're claiming it's down in class. And if I was using the old structure, it actually comes out as the clear-cut favourite for the race. But there's plenty of evidence to suggest that horses that are starting above $15 very, very rarely win. And in fact, since I've been doing the wagon wheel, not one of the horses that have been a value bet have won at any more than $15. And so, that's 88 races or something, and not one of them above $15. So, it's a value bet, but the top pick is Andermatt, way unders as far as the bookie price is concerned, so no bet there. Race number 8, it does select the favourite to win, but again, not at a good price, so no bet in that particular race. Coming to race 9, comes up with the third favourite as the top selection, but again at a poor price, so we're not having a bet on that one. And race 10, we finally get to a bet where it does select what I think is the favourite. Yes, it is, Francesco Guardi. This is when I put the prices in this afternoon. That's Friday afternoon. Of course, these prices can change, which means that the numbers will change over here. And if there are any scratchings, the barriers will change, and these numbers over here will change also. But at the moment, this is going to be a bet. Wagon has it priced at $2.89. You can currently get $4. Moving over to Caulfield, race 6. It selects the favourite to win, but not at a good enough price. In race 7, again, picks the favourite to win, but it's under the odds. Race 8, we finally get another bet, Junior Pal, and currently at a better price than what the wagon wheel is suggesting it should be at. And finally, race 9, it selects the favourite to win again, but the price is way too short. And so that's the wagon for this week. You can download it from Google Sheets and have a look at what's going on there. However, there is one horse in this particular race that I do want to bring to your attention. I'm going to have a bet on it. It's $71 at the moment. The horse is called Innkeeper. It won first up at its last preparation. I have had some nice wins on it. It's trained by Simon, I think it is, Wild. He is a very good trainer. And let's just have a look at the stats surrounding this horse. Now, there are a few things going on here that I think makes this horse very well priced in terms of being way over what I think its true odds ought to be. Now, it's first up, and if you look at its first up performance, it's not that special. 7 goes first up for 2 wins and a placing. But last preparation, first up at Terang, benchmark 78, won carrying 60.5, and then went to Warrnambool and ran in a listed race, carrying 54 and won again. Now this race again is a listed race, so same class as that race that it won second up last preparation. But the thing that really excites me about this horse is the jockey. Linda Meach is riding it this time. It's ridden it 10 times for 7 wins and 2 seconds. Now, it's only won 9 races altogether. So Linda's been on this horse for 7 of those 9 wins, 9 placings out of 10 for her rides on the horse. Okay, first up's not that special, I guess, but this is not the worst horse in the race by a long way. And I don't think the class of this race is all that special. Some of these horses are okay, but they're not super good. So anyway, I'll be having, my $5 perhaps each way and, a place bet. If you're at Betfair, you can probably get maybe $20 a place on this if you go over to Betfair. But I'll just bring that to your attention. Not financial advice, is it? I'm not allowed to give financial advice. And hence we're here talking about the races. Innkeeper, have a look at that one. If it happens to get up, you send a cup of Chibo through the post to me, perhaps. Let's see how we go with that. But now let's just get on and have a quick chat about this issue about horses, thoroughbreds, that is, not being very consistent. There is plenty of evidence to say that horses can't tell you when they're not feeling too good, and they can't tell you whether they don't like the conditions on the track. Or whether that they're enjoying the way the jockey's riding them. And there's so many things that, of course, are unknown. You don't know whether the jockey's going to find the best part of the track to be riding in, whether the race is going to be run at a pace to suit the horse. What happens if it just happens to miss the start or gets chopped out or gets interfered with? So many things can absolutely go wrong in a race. And so I was thinking during the week, what do we do to find horses which are actually super consistent and give us a really high probability of giving us a good run for our money? And so I thought, well, okay, let's find a really simple little strategy. 2 rules. Horse has to have had at least 4 starts, so it's got some experience. And secondly, the horse has never missed a place. And I thought, well, okay, let's just open up the form guide and see if there's any horses like this. Well, across the whole week, midweek racing, I admit, only found 3 in total. And of those 3, 2 of them won and the other one ran third. And so I'm going to sort of follow this through a little bit. And just for your interest, here are the horses that fit that rule for tomorrow. We've got Caulfield Race 3, to Bay Shore, I think it's called. Randwick Race 3, Former Deck. Randwick Race 5, Cur Royale. Then Randwick Race 6. There are 3 horses that fit the metric. And Former Deck being entered in 2 races is going to be scratched out of one of them, obviously. And then we've got Doomben Race 4, Canadian Dancer, and Doomben Race 7, Put on the Red Light. Now, I was sort of thinking, well, okay, there are quite a number of horses that string together just like placing after placing after placing. And then I'm not necessarily a fan of betting horses just for the place. But I think there was one horse ran, a couple of years ago when I first noticed it, was having its 20th start and had never missed a place. And so, let's say a few of these happen to string together 3 or 4 or 5 more placings in a row. Well, okay, if you can get something like, at least $1.70, $1.80 the place, maybe there's something in that. So, along with the wagon wheel, I'm going to keep track of this and keep you informed as we're going along, the performance of it. So we'll see how these particular selections go for the win, and we'll also follow them betting for the place. And what I'll be doing is using the odds that I can get on Betfair. And next week, I'm going to talk about Betfair a little bit before we get into looking at the wagon wheel. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you found it entertaining and interesting. And good luck with your punting, and looking forward to chatting with you again in 7 days' time.